everybody. Welcome to Vlogmas. I don't know what day it is because I did not plan ahead well enough to be able to track that and be telling you the truth. So this is day whatever, and we're still doing it. And that's all that really matters. Today I thought it would be fun to read you a little bit of Six Deaths of a Saint by Alexi Harrow. And the reason that I wanted to read to you today is just because I enjoy when people read to me. So I thought maybe you would also enjoy it. And because the fact that the Six Deaths of a Saint is the reason that I found The Everlasting and enjoyed it as much as I did. I thought it would be a nice little bite-sized thing to do for you on Vlogmas, and also just like a little gift where I read something that's very near and dear to my heart to you, and we have a little like quiet reading time. This can also be very good practice for my audiobook career. I do not have an audiobook career, it is imaginary. But a lot of people tell me that they would read books narrated by me if I did ever do that. So if anybody out there is watching and you want me to narrate your audiobook, weirdobookklubb@gmail.com. And obviously I didn't put a lot of effort into the whole shebang here because I really just want you to hear me talk to you about this book and read it to you and tell you a little bit about it. So let's start with the details the way I usually do a review, and then we'll get to reading. The Six Deaths of the Saint by Alexi Harrow is a 31-page short story that was an Amazon original stories in a series, the Into Shadow series. I actually read a couple other little bite-sized stories from this series, but I only really connected with The Six Deaths of a Saint. It was originally published in 2022, so she had 2-3 years to write The Everlasting, which was inspired by this short story, and that just warmed my heart when I found out. So the synopsis reads, "The Saint of War spares the life of a servant girl so she can fulfill her destiny as the kingdom's greatest warrior in this short story of love and loyalty by New York Times bestselling author Alexi Harrow. Always mindful of the debt she owes, the girl finds her worth as a weapon in the hands of the prince. Her victories make him a king, then an emperor. The bards sing her name and her enemies fear it, but the war never ends and the cost keeps rising. How many times will she repeat her own story?" So if you haven't read The Everlasting or this, then you can kind of gauge from this little bite that it's a time loop story of a knight who is used as a means to an end. But what happens when she wants autonomy over her own life and her own destiny? So I'm going to read a little bit of the story to you, and yeah, here we go. The Six Deaths of the Saint by Alexi Harrow. You were a child the first time the Saint of War came to you. You had fallen ill again in the tiresome and inevitable way of the underfed, and the steward had sent you out to the barn so the lord and lady might not be disturbed by your fevered moaning. You weren't missed. You were one of a dozen fatherless half-feral children that squabbled and starved in the shadows of the keep. Only the stable boy came to visit you, a waifish, bow-legged creature who had trailed after you like a stray dog ever since you'd taken a beating from the cook in his place. You hadn't done it out of any particular affection, but you liked the way he looked at you afterward, as if you were a hero stepped out of some bard's song. Tall as an oak and twice as strong. Now he crouched at your side, sometimes holding a cup to your chapped lips or pressing the fragile bones of his hand to your brow. You thought you would probably die soon. And then the saint came. You were staring up at the rotten thatch of a roof, wondering if anyone would ever remember your name long enough to mark your grave, and then you were looking at a woman's face. She didn't seem like the saints in the songs. Her lips were sunken where teeth were missing, and her skin was puckered with old scars. There was a fresh wound above her jaw, livid and weeping, and the armor that lapped her shoulders was dinted and scored with battle. Her eyes were rather fine, you thought, the lavish blue of the Virgin's own robe, just like yours. But she carried no cross and wore a rusted mail hood instead of a halo. But she said in a voice like a dull blade dragged across a stone, "I am the Saint of War, and you lost a great deal of faith in the bard's song. Rise," she said, "your kingdom needs you." You rose, your joints grated, and your vision spun in sickening lurches, but you rose because she was a saint and you were nothing, because no one had ever needed you before. "Go," the saint said. "He waits for you." You stumbled out of the dimness of the stables and into the hard light of day. You could only open your eyes for a few stinging seconds at a time so that the yard emerged in a series of flashes. Strange men on horseback, winter light on steel, the sleek foreign shine of well-bred horses. You kept walking until you couldn't, until the pale stalks of your legs simply folded up on themselves. Someone high above you said, "Is this the girl?" And someone else answered in a voice like a well-greased hinge, "Yes, sire." Then there were boots beside your face. You rolled onto your back and saw, for the second time that day, the face of a saint. This one looked much more like the song said, young and beautiful, entirely unmarred. There was a shine to him, a subtle emanation of health and prosperity. He even wore a halo, you thought. You'd never seen a crown before. He asked your name, but before you could answer, you heard your lady's voice, breathless and mean. "Forgive us, my prince. She is no one, a devil sent to plague us." The lady has often called you a devil, as had the cook, the steward, the master of hounds, all the laundresses, and the woodcutter. but it had not previously concerned you. Now you found yourself ashamed, filled with freshly hatched fear, that you would be banished from the golden presence of the prince, unwanted, unneeded. But he only smiled down at you. He wore an expression you've never seen before, an avid, scorching hunger which you thought must be love. He lifted you in his arms, you were hideously aware of every scabbed sore, every flea scuttling through the reddish mat of your hair, and said to the lady, "Well, she's my devil now." And you found you did not mind being a devil, so long as you were his. Ooh. Ooh, almost lost it there. She almost lost it. The prince slid you atop the fine leather of his saddle and mounted behind you. He made a small, disgusted noise and muttered, "You had better be sure, father." The soft, well-greased voice came again, emerging from a little priest so drab and ragged that you thought at first he was a stray shadow thrown by the prince's radiance. "I am sure, sire." The prince flicked his reins in answer. You rode through the gates, half convinced it was another fever dream, that you would soon wake and be no one again, a sickly scrap of a girl born in the darkness, and destined to die there, forgotten by everyone except a bow-legged stable boy. But it was no dream. When you die, little devil, a kingdom will fall to its knees and crawl to your bier. In 1,000 years and 1,000 after that, they will sing of the prince and his devil, so long as you do as I say. You looked behind you only once as you rode away from that place, and were surprised to see the little stable boy limping after the prince's procession. He was so persistent and pathetic that on the 3rd or 4th day, the prince relented and the stable boy became your squire. So that's as far as I can go, because it's already 13% of the way in. So there's so many parallels now when I go back and read it, and you can definitely see the direct lines from the 6 deaths of the saint to the everlasting, which is another review that I'm going to be doing on here. It's going to be a little longer than this one, but this is Vlogmas, and I'm trying to make a video a day. So this is the video for today. So it kind of gives you this idea and a feel of the story and the setup and the way that the words flow. I've always felt in this story and in the everlasting that the flowery language, the beautiful prose that is used, reads like a story someone's telling you orally. Like it feels like you should be sat by a campfire, wrapped in a blanket, leaning in across the flame so that you can hear whoever's telling the story a little bit better. Like it has that pull to it for me. It just invites me in and envelops me. Like I feel very attached to this story. And it's not a genre that I usually spend a lot of time in. I'm not real big on like the fantasy, high fantasy especially, stuff with knights and nobles and swords and dragons and things like that. It's not really something that I spend a lot of time with. But for some reason, when I read this short story, it was so beautifully written and tragic in its own way, but hopeful at the same time. It just was so good. And I didn't even think to mention it to anybody because it was a short story that I was reading at the end of last year to try to hit my reading goal. I did not hit it, but I did find this story, or it found me. And then when I was talking to Rachel about, we were supposed to be making like a list of book recs that go along with tracks on Even in Arcadia, Sleep Token's latest album. We still haven't really finished it. She was having a lot of trouble, especially finding one for her favorite song, which is Infinite Baths. It's the final track. And that's when I was like, well, let me look and see what I put. And I went and looked and I saw that I had put the 6 deaths of the saint. And she lost her mind. It was just floored. Like, oh my God, I read that too. How did I not think of that? Oh my God, you're right. It is Infinite Baths. And I was like, I know I kind of do this for a living. No, I was really proud of myself for nailing it so well. I always like to impress my best friend whenever I can. So if you're watching, how am I doing? But I have a list, and that's going to be something that I share with you in a Vlogmas video in the next coming days or weeks, whenever I decide to put it out. But I did finish my list, and they're not all perfect for the Sleep Token references, but I do feel like I have seen so many bad recommendations given that read this if you want Sleep Token vibes. And it's just like Little Stranger by Lee Rivers, haunting Adeline. And not only is it just incorrect, this is just incorrect, but it's also highly offensive. How could you? How dare you? Who do you think you are? Kind of thing. And so I was like, who do I think I am? I'm not even doing a list, so let me do a list. And I have a rec for each song and a reason why I recommended them. So that's going to be a future video. Thank you for going on this little audiobook narrator journey with me. I feel like I did a good job, but I also know how special this story is to me. So maybe I'm just seeing it through rose-colored glasses. Like there's no bad way to ingest this story. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. It also has an audiobook that goes along with it. So I think you can listen and read it in tandem if you want to. And like I said, it's only 31 pages. So if you, like me, are looking to get closer to your reading goal for the year, this is a great short story to do that with. And I do think that I'm going to be reading it live and in full in my Discord, which again, you can access through my bindery, and it's free to join and get that access. So if that's something that interests you, scoot on over there. If not, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know how I did, and if I convinced you to pick it up and give it a try. Thank you for being with me on this little installment of Vlogmas. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that I will see you again. Thanks again. I love you. You don't have to say it back. Happy holidays. Bye.